Welcome to TedX Grand Canyon University 2020. Tonight, our presenters will bring a fresh perspective to the new decade, creating a space to explore leadership, health, philosophy, STEM, art, and business with the larger intention of forecasting a vision for 2020. As a society, we have become distracted by the noise of the restless world. But beyond this noise, curiosity, discovery, storytelling, and revelation are present in our generation, in plain sight. Together, let's gain a new vision for a new decade from the collection of ideas and stories that surround us each day. Please welcome Caleb Duarte.
Good evening, everybody. How are we doing tonight? Hey, there we go. We're awake. Welcome, everybody, to TedX Grand Canyon University in plain sight. I am your host for the evening and occasion, Caleb Duarte, back again on the TedX stage. I'm so humbled and honored to be here. It is an amazing event that is put on by all students. So first off, can we give a round of applause for that? This event's taking place in beautiful Effington Theater on the amazing campus of Grand Canyon. We are so excited to hear from 6 amazing speakers from all over the state and world, and 2 performers that I will guarantee show you amazing talents and stories within those very talents. A few rules about a TedX event. It's a little different than normal. Is the speakers and performers might ask you to get up and stand up. They might ask you to do things with their hands. They might ask you to perform and do things such as that. Also, though, if you feel compelled, if you like an idea in the middle of a talk, you can clap. You can say amen. You can say things that you feel compelled to do, because that's all about what this event is about, is making you feel things that you've never thought about and new ideas. I am so excited for tonight, but before we hear from anybody, before we do anything, I want to take this moment to challenge you. Normally at an event like this, where you're going to hear from speakers and you sit in chairs such as yourself, there are 2 rules you need to accomplish. The first one is take a seat, you're doing great. And the second one is listen. And I hope you're listening to me so far, you act like it. But it's pretty much those 2 rules and it will be a guaranteed successful event. But what if I told you, this event tonight and over the next few hours, it's designed to do more than just listen. And I want to challenge you to do that very thing. To do more than listen, but lean in on what is being said and truly receive the information. Take it in and be challenged. Folks, if you picked up a program on your way in, I encourage you to open it up to page 3. On the right, you'll see a lovely picture of a very handsome man. That's me. Thank you. But on the left, you'll see 5 words. And I'm going to show you really quickly, in a few moments, how those 5 words, if you truly are challenged tonight and lean in on what this event's designed to do, you'll see that those 5 words are actually a 5-step process to show you truly, to see what's in plain sight. The first word is discover. I guarantee you, if you lean in tonight and be challenged and be uncomfortable and grow, you will discover new things about yourself. You will discover new ideas you didn't think you had, new thoughts you never knew were possible in your mind, because we are all created uniquely and amazingly and in so many adventurous ways that you don't even know your mind can go. I guarantee you, if you challenge and you allow yourself to be uncomfortable with the ideas that are going to be presented to you, you will discover new ideas that will lead to a clarity in your life that you need and that everybody hungers for. The word clarity is so unique. I am a 21-year-old soon-to-be college graduate, and I guarantee you, I crave a clarity of what I'm going to be when I'm 25, when I'm 45, when I'm 95, hopefully 95 and still alive. But I guarantee you, by discovering new ideas, by being challenged, you will have a sense of clarity in your life. And by having a clarity in your life, it will give you a sense of identity you didn't know exist. The word identity is one of those things in life that we all struggle with, whether you admit it or not. I guarantee you we have all struggled with that. Maybe on the drive over, you have struggled with the identity you hold of yourself. Maybe this morning when you woke up and you looked in the mirror You didn't know who that was in front of you. But by discovering new ideas, by formulating a sense of clarity, you will find an identity within yourself that is truly remarkable and beautiful. Having that identity will lead to a true sense of authenticity that is rare to find. If you think about it, if you had to list about 10 traits of the rarest traits you can find in a person, authenticity would probably be on that list. We all have that one person in our mind that whether their actions are for the good or for the bad, we always struggle with, are they genuine and are they authentic? But I know for a fact, by discovering new ideas, having a sense of clarity in your life, by knowing who you are, by having an actual identity, you will have a sense of authenticity about you that will lead you down a road of success, I promise. And finally, by doing all four of those things tonight, you will have a sense of being united in your own visions and your own dreams and your own aspirations, that all you will say is, folks, there is unity in this world, and I guarantee you that this world needs that every day. Now, tonight's not going to change things. It's not going to make you feel a sense of wonder. It's not going to make you think that everything's perfect, but it will challenge you in a way that will truly grow and push you and will truly make you see what is in plain sight. And that's what we're here to do. And it is my honor and privilege to welcome up our first speaker.
In our lives, there are many barriers that seem to keep us from achieving our goals. With a different mindset, however, we may be able to learn and grow from our roadblocks. Please welcome Catherine Planham.
What is getting in the way of what you want out of life? Take a moment to think about it and hang on to it for now as I share some stories with you. As a transformational coach, life is not about getting what you want out of life. Life is about getting rid of what is in the way. From my own experience, I know what it's like getting in my own way. I know what it feels like to hold myself back from a loving relationship. And I know what it's like sabotaging my own success. And I know what it's like resisting change. All of these are obstacles. And once we can identify our obstacles, we can let go of them, because in reality, everything changes. And once you can truly believe that change is inevitable, then there is nothing to hang on to. Throughout my life, I have had the wonderful experience to help others overcome their obstacles, and thus now would like to share 3 stories with you to help you bring this concept to life. Let's meet Diane, a very professional executive who is an extremely intelligent individual. However, she lived a whole life living in fear of mistakes, so much so that she was constantly making mistakes. Because of her intense focus on not making a mistake, she found herself tripping over mistakes all of the time. When we focus on what we don't want, we actually draw them in and turn them into a bigger problem than it is. In one of our coaching sessions one day, I asked her one simple question. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Well, she gave me this whole story on how she would put herself out there when things presented. She would be more courageous in her approach, and she would take more risks. And then it led me to the next question. What are you really afraid of? And her response is, I am afraid of success. Well, I know this may sound strange because most of us would think that fear comes from fear of failure, but not in Diane's case. It was completely the opposite. which led me to my next question. I was really intrigued with what was the fear about, so I asked her to elaborate a little bit more. And she said to me, if I'm successful in my role, I may have to move cities. And if I have to move cities, I would have to leave all of my friends and family. And in doing so, I would have to start all over again. As you can see, obstacles are an interesting concept because they can stop us doing the very thing that we must do to find happiness and success. And in Diane's case, the unconscious root cause to her fear was the resistance to change, which is quite normal. Neuroscience tells us that the brain doesn't like change. Most people resist change because it threatens their natural habitual patterns. For example, if we were to start a new role, a new car, a new boss, a new diet, or a new routine, your brain would have to work overtime because it have to learn to adapt to the change. The more ingrained you are in your ways of doing things, the longer it takes to create new habits. Let's meet my second client, Tina, who is a very creative entrepreneur, who is very much a perfectionist, to the point where she is holding back on projects and missing deadlines. And this was having an impact on her business. When we really break down perfectionism, this is just an ego-based habit and mindset, because the word perfectionist goes hand in hand with procrastination, which leads to paralysis. In one of our coaching sessions one day, I asked Tina, what are the costs to you and your business being a perfectionist? And Tina thought about it, and then she started crying. And she said, I don't trust myself, and I don't think anything is ever good enough. And I'm so tired of this inner drive to be perfect. I gave her the space. I paused. And then I asked her, what are the consequences if you continue down this path? And she said, if I continue down this path, I will be making myself very sick, as already I'm experiencing anxiety and mental fatigue, which is putting stress on my body, and my emotions are all over the place. I am exhausted and drained, and this is just too hard to continue. So the next thing we explored was to remove the perfectionist and purposely start practicing a statement like, better done and out there working for me than perfect. Self-care was Tina's focus, that there is no such thing as perfect. This was a figment of her imagination, because the question for her was perfect in whose eyes, and the understanding that all humans have flaws. And the purpose was not to get things perfect, but more so what was the process and learning from it. Her motto became, the way to move from survival to success is 1 inch at a time. And now for my final client, Linda, who is a team lead for a very large organisation. And it was the HR manager who made contact with me to work with Linda, because there was some complaints about her behaviour and a lack of self-awareness. When I spoke to the HR manager to give me a little bit more insight into Linda's behaviour, she said, well, she is always opposing new ideas from her team. She attacks her team when things go wrong. She's hard to impress, and she is constantly getting into conflicts with other team members within the organisation. Mind you, this is something that I hear and see often. Let me explain. Most of us try to fix up the behaviour, and all that does is create more resistance. And in Linda's case, every time the HR manager would point out her misbehaviour, she would become very defensive. And if anything, it had an impact on her productivity and her performance. Now, the reason for this out of control behavior is because the way she was showing up is an unconscious behavior. This is Linda's blind spot, and it takes another individual to shine light onto these blind spots to make the unconscious conscious. Before I tell you more about Linda, I think it's important for me to explain the difference between attitude and behavior. Attitude is the way that we think and feel, and behavior is the way that we show up. So let's go back to Linda now. If we want to change her behavior, we need to get into Linda's head to find out exactly what she's thinking and feeling about her role within the organisation, what she thinks and feels about her leadership team and her direct reports, because this will give us insight into exactly why she is showing up this way. I had the privilege to be invited to one of their team meetings, and it was the HR manager facilitating this meeting, and it was really obvious that Linda was not engaged. She was sitting there on her mobile phone. She had no input into the meeting, and if anything, her responses were negative in nature. Now, of course, the HR manager wanted to address her behaviour straight after the meeting, and I stepped in and said, "Whatever you're about to tell Linda right now, turn them into questions, because if you are about to point out her behaviour, she will deny it, she won't relate to it, and if anything, she will get her back up and defend herself." The HR manager thought about it for a while and then asked me if I would be happy to have that conversation with Linda. So remember, the trick is not to bring up the behaviour, but what we want to do is get into Linda's mind to find out exactly what she was thinking and feeling about the meeting, so to give us insight into her behaviour. My first question to Linda was, "What did you think about the meeting?" And she responded, "Well, they're very repetitive. They never have an agenda. We never end our meeting with an action item. I find them a waste of time." So my next question was, "How do you feel we should run our meetings?" And she said, "Well, firstly, I think we should have an agenda, so they're on purpose. And then I think we should all come into the meeting with an idea that's aligned to the purpose, and then end our meeting with an action item that we can start our next meeting with." The HR manager was sitting with us the whole time, and she turned over to Linda and said, "How would you like to run our next meeting?" And Linda was delighted and said yes. You can clearly see that by asking the right question without addressing the behaviour and only using the two words that are related to attitude, thinking and feeling, that we were able to identify exactly why Linda was not engaged in the team meeting without addressing her behaviour. After a few sessions with Linda, it was very clear that her obstacle was a very strong inner critic, telling her that she's not good enough. You see, we all have obstacles. They are inevitable, and we do have control on how we react and respond to them. There are 3 types of obstacles that are likely to present along your path, and these are personal obstacles that relate to your mindset, behaviour and belief. Those that prevent us from moving forward and prohibit effective decision making, just like Diane. And then there are social obstacles that relate to others around us, like those people that don't cooperate or sabotage us, or are simply unable to fulfill the responsibilities assigned to them, just like Tina. And then there are those environmental obstacles, those unexpected occurrences, like the things that could happen when we're on our way for that long anticipated weekend getaway in the mountains, or when there is resistance within our environment, just like Linda. If we are able to overcome all of our obstacles, then we will learn valuable lessons that require us to achieve, learn and grow. Setbacks are inevitable too, but if you believe that everything happens for us and not to us, then you can shift your mindset into solving a problem and finding solutions. If we now go back to the question at the beginning, what is getting in the way of what you want out of life? Just like Diane, Tina, Linda, and myself, we are constantly getting in our way. Whether it's that inner critic always telling us we're not good enough, or the fear of standing in our light, or the resistance to change, we are never done. Obstacles will always present. It is up to us how we react and respond to them. Obstacles don't block the path, they are the path. Thank you.
Can we give it up for Catherine Plano one more time, everybody? Throughout the night, when a speaker's done, we're going to come up here and stand in this lovely red circle and ask how it feels. So, Catherine, the first one, how does it feel? You just gave your TEDx talk. How you feeling?
I'm shaking my boots. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not nervous.
I got to ask, you probably picked up on it. The accent, where's it from?
Australia.
Any Australia fans in the audience tonight? Love it. Love it. Well, from the land down under to the stage in Effingham Theatre, Grand Canyon University, thank you so much. Give it up for Catherine Plano one more time. Folks, in the 5-step process, I told you about a word at the end called unity. And well, right now we want to unite everybody, and if you can scoot in for me, that would be great. We have some GA members coming in from the lobby that we want to make sure have a seat. So if you have an open seat next to you that is inwards towards the middle, please scoot in and really have that sense of unity with each other. We didn't plan that, but look at that, full circle story, if you ask me. So take a few moments if you can. Want to make sure everybody gets in here. Awesome. Thank you. All righty. All righty. Thank you guys so much. We're going to continue here, folks. There's going to be people filing in. That is okay. All righty. Well, folks, we're one speaker down, and I'm excited to continue with our next speaker. I want to ask you if there's ever a leader that you ever had throughout your life, somebody that has led a group, that has led yourself, a coach, a teacher, a parent. Have that in your mind and think about what it means to truly be a leader. Because our next speaker, well, is going to show you what a leader truly is. So please welcome our next speaker.
Anyone can impact the world, but how can they ensure it will be for good? In order to fix communities, leaders must first fix themselves. Please welcome Andy Maurer.
Last year, I was invited out to LA to speak with 50 high-level leaders. Now, I was invited out to speak on a topic that I had become known for, the issue of trauma. And the night before, I was feeling extremely nervous, and it's not because I didn't know my content. As a licensed therapist and an emotional wellness coach who specializes in trauma with high-level leaders, I knew my content by heart. It was that I was bringing such vulnerability to a group that had appeared to be so invulnerable. I had heard from leaders over and over again, Andy, I don't have trauma. Nothing bad has really happened in my background. And anything that bad did happen, I just used to my advantage. So I took a risk. I pulled these leaders together into a circle, and I pulled up 2 chairs and had them face one another right in the middle. I asked for 2 volunteers. One gentleman came up, sat in the chair to my left. Another gentleman came up and sat in the chair facing him. Now, I had been watching this gentleman right here. His name was Alex all morning long. If there was an alpha of this leadership group, he was it. Strong, confident, courageous, highly successful, and every time I saw him, there were swarms of men and women around him trying to get a piece of why he did or how he did what he did. So I had these 2 leaders do something. They were going to hold out their hands one at a time to one another for 30 seconds straight while the other one sits there still. No talking, no laughing, maintaining eye contact, and noticing what was happening in their body. So the gentleman facing Alex, he went first. He put his hands out. 30 seconds went by. I look at Alex, and his face is stone cold. I'm like, oh gosh. This guy is the ultimate subscriber to that mindset that I had just talked about from leaders. So I said, okay, Alex, you're up. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, his hands drop, his eyes fill with tears, and he begins to cry. The room was silent, but I knew exactly what had happened because I had seen this happen over and over from leaders. I walked up to him, I bent down, and I said, Alex, it's really hard for you to let people in, isn't it? It's really hard for you to let them know that you need something. And he said, yeah, it's incredibly difficult. You see, this wasn't the first time that Alex had reached out. As a child, he reached out physically and metaphorically for love and encouragement, empowerment, soothing, a sense of identity, and what he got in return was abuse and trauma. His dad was a workaholic. He worked 80 hours a week. And when he was around, the only thing that he cared about was when Alex was performing. Sending this searing message into Alex's soul and mind that he was an asset to be leveraged. He wasn't a child or a human to be loved. You see, it was trauma in that moment that day that caused Alex to drop his hands. It was trauma that caused Alex to build this impenetrable wall of success and power and wealth and money so that people couldn't get close to him. It was power that caused him to go all the way up to CEO because at that point, no one could hurt him. But it was playing out in his life. He was becoming disconnected. He was becoming fragmented with himself, with others, and with his work. His marriage was holding on by a thread. His relationships with his children was the same thing that he had with his dad, constantly seeking their performance and not having real connection with them. You know, he lost connection with himself too. He didn't know what he felt. He lost connection with his purpose, and he lost connection with his meaning. And he became really fragmented with his work. He got disconnected from the work that he was doing because he was trying to prove his worth through the work that he was doing instead of knowing his worth and living out of that. He had become fragmented. You know what he did? He had a story of pain and trauma and brokenness. And instead of healing that, he just kept going to seek success and fame and relationships to somehow fill those holes, but it wasn't working. Alex had a ton of power. He had power to change the world. He was a leader. He couldn't help it. But he didn't have power to change the world for the better. As Richard Rohr states, if we do not transform our pain, we will most assuredly transmit it. Now, before I ever met Alex, I was on this quest, this mission to find out, what is that one thing that most fragments leaders? I had seen over and over leaders come to me, broken on the inside, things on their world starting to decay and implode, and I thought, man, what's going on? And then I found research that showed that 2.6% of entrepreneurs have 2.6 times the rate of mental health disorders than the general population. Twice the rate of depression, 3 times the rate of addiction, 6 times the rate of ADHD, and 11 times the rate of bipolar disorder. I was shocked. But I didn't stop there because I knew that was just fruit on a tree that had very deep roots going into the soil, and I wanted to dig deeper. And then it was there. That one thing, I found it. It permeated every single soul of these entrepreneurs and these leaders. It was trauma. Trauma made it so that Alex could not hold his hands out. It made it that he was fragmented from his story. Now you might be thinking, Andy, trauma's not that prevalent. Well, the largest study ever done about 2 years ago looked at 69,000 adults over 24 countries, and they actually found that the U.S. was ranked 3rd highest in traumatic exposure. 82.7% of adults in the U.S. have experienced trauma. 30.5% have experienced 4 or more. And when I started to dig into the research, I found that when childhood trauma was present, things like depression, ADHD, anxiety, suicide, divorce, burnout, those rates actually skyrocketed. Trauma was at the root of what was actually going on. Trauma is always about disconnection. It's disconnection from ourselves, it's disconnection from others, and it's disconnection from the work that we do. The Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration defines trauma as an event, a series of events, or a set of circumstances that we experience as both physically or emotionally harmful and that have lasting impact on us emotionally, physically, relationally, occupationally, and spiritually. Trauma is always about disconnection. And I saw it in Alex, and I saw it in his life, and that's why I wanted to do this type of work with the leaders that I work with. Alex turned away from his story, and he couldn't heal his story. And therefore, he wasn't able to create the kind of future of purpose and meaning. He was just reliving the story of which he got. And I want to take you into your own story this morning. Some of you are leaders, some of you are not. I think everybody is a leader in some way. A father, a mother, a boss, a teacher. But the first step is to face our story. So what I want you to do is I want you to do something with me here in this room. I want you to notice in your body, where's that part of your story that has become fragmented? A long time ago, you pushed it down, you hid it, you packaged it away, and you've been running towards success and avoidance and fame and money and everything ever since. I want you to find that place right now. And I want you to notice in your body where that's located, and we're going to take 20 seconds. And I just want you to feel that and connect with that part. You don't need to go back to your past. Stay here with me. Put one foot in the past, one foot here, and just connect with the part of your story that feels broken. Notice what it feels like in your body. Okay, I want you to stand up with me. Everybody stand up out of their chairs. Whether you're here or you're watching this online, you can do it. I want you to envision your feet on the ground like a redwood tree with roots driving into the ground, anchoring you to the ground. I want you to envision your spine straight like steel. I want you to imagine your heart open and warm, and I want you to take a breath with me. I want you to envision yourself 30 years in the future. And if that's going to put some of you in the grave, just go 15, because I don't want anybody dying here. It's not helpful. 15 to 30 years in the future with wisdom and insight, empowerment, courage. Looking back on life with a keen sense of understanding and wisdom. And I want you to notice what that feels like in your body. Take it in. I want you to turn around, and I actually want you to face your chair now. So turn yourself around, stay standing, face the chair that you were sitting in. And now what I want you to do is I want you to look at that person in that chair that's struggling or hurting, that has trauma or pain in their background. What is the one thing that you would want to tell them right here, right now, in this moment that they need to hear but they never did hear? From that place of courage and compassion and wisdom, what would you want to say to that part? I'm going to give you 20 seconds to say that in your head and your heart. I want you to sit down into those chairs now with me. And I want you, like water, going over your body, filling every space and every crevice of your soul and your identity. I want you to take in that message now for 20 seconds and just notice what it feels like to have that said to those spaces that have been hidden for a long time. Notice what it feels like to be loved, to be known, to be whole. Maybe for the first time, like Alex, this is the first time you're facing your story. Maybe for the first time, this is the time that you've actually looked back and said, wow, there's something there, and actually just stepped in and created a moment of healing because you spoke with compassion rather than criticism. You spoke with purpose rather than a performance-based identity, just like Alex did. Will you, like Alex, face your story so you can heal your story and so you can create the story you wanted? I started to do work with Alex for over a year, and I saw transformation. I saw that he found his sense of identity, his sense of worth, his sense of purpose, and he worked out of that rather than to try to achieve that. His relationship with his wife recovered, it repaired. He had deep intimacy. He allowed other people to know him at levels that he had never even known before. And the favorite part is he could play with his kids. Because when trauma is present, we don't know how to play. He got to play with his kids and see the smiles on their face that he had never seen before. Alex was becoming whole. Will you, like Alex, face your story, heal your story, so that you can create a new story of purpose and meaning and power? Will you, like Alex, pursue whole? Because leaders have the power to change the world, but whole leaders have the power to change the world for the better. Thank you.
Give it up for Andy Maurer, everybody. How you feeling?
Better now than before.
I told you, you might have to stand up and put your arms out. Andy did it both times. Andy, whole leaders make the best kind of leaders. What would you, if you had to leave one thing with them to become those whole leaders, what would it be?
Just the confidence and courage that you can do that. You can look back, you can face your story with courage and compassion. You don't have to relive your trauma. You can pursue wholeness. You can actually change that now today.
I love it. Andy Maurer, everybody. Our next speaker focuses on a topic that, to be frank, people seem to be too scared to even approach. So please, without further ado, your next speaker.
Certain inevitable experiences can often lead us to live our lives in fear. But what if this really motivated us to let go of fear and to live fuller lives instead? Please welcome Allison Hayden.
Life is full of uncertainty. But there's one thing we know for sure. That one thing, we're all going to die. Death's actually the only absolute in this life, and yet we don't talk about it. If anything, we avoid the topic at all costs. I get it. Thinking about death is really scary, right? Imagine tomorrow you're at a doctor's appointment. She walks in and she says, "I've got some tough news. You know those headaches you've been complaining about? Well, it turns out it's a brain tumor. And I'm sorry to say this, but there's not much else we can do. We think you've got probably a couple months left to live." Instantly, your entire life has changed. That work thing you were stressed about, the argument you had with your spouse, the concerns you had about the 10 pounds that you couldn't lose, none of it matters, right? The retirement savings that you were squirreling away, you're not gonna live long enough to spend it, and you can't take it with you. The thing is, death is absolute. And basically, when I found out, when I was 38 years old, in September of 2018, I was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer. It was the worst kind of breast cancer. It was basically, highly emotional for me to talk about, obviously. Triple negative, it's the most aggressive, it has the least available treatment options. You know, before this, friends would have said I was one of the healthiest people they knew. You know, I didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't do drugs, and essentially, when the shock came, it really hit hard. And we didn't find it early. I was diagnosed stage 4, locally advanced, non-metastatic, which meant that the cancer had spread, but not to my vital organs. So it was bad, but not incurable. Essentially, when I thought about it, you know, I had these questions, right? It was, you know, what if the treatment doesn't work? What if I die in a year? So I did what any normal person does. I started Googling. This was a terrible idea. 0 stars, would not recommend. Why? Because, well, this is me. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I am huddled over my phone. I've stumbled upon the Instagram of a woman, we'll call her Susan, and she has the same cancer as I do. I'm scrolling through photos of her in treatment. I end up, finding out that she's in remission. I smile, this makes me feel good. But then I see that, her cancer's come back. But Susan's a fighter, she's not gonna let this get her down. I scroll hurriedly to the top of the screen to find out how she's doing now, only to find the most recent post written not by Susan, but by her son, sharing the sad news that his mother had actually lost her fight with the disease and had died. In this moment, I am devastated, right? Tears flowing down my cheeks. I'm sobbing, trying to keep it down so I don't wake up my partner who's asleep beside me. In the light of day, I try and write down my fears. Doesn't work. And the thought of having a face-to-face conversation about my very real concerns about an early death from cancer, having that with my partner or my family just seems impossible, right? They've already been through so much, I don't want to cause them any more pain. But there were a couple friends and my therapist who were able to sit with me in that emotional space and let me talk about death, dying, and really everything in between. And you know what? Instead of finding myself in some hole, some puddle of tears that I couldn't pull myself out of, it was quite the opposite. I started to feel better. So then it was like, well, now what, right? I'm your classic type A. I'm intense. I like plans, right? Many would call me extra. For context, the day before starting chemotherapy, I went to Staples to stock up on office supplies to prepare for cancer treatment. Serious. I bought a dry erase board calendar where I mapped out all of my different doctor's appointments, of course, color-coded. I got a journal where I documented to the minute my meds, what I was eating, what I was feeling, my side effects, my symptoms, so that I could try and track patterns over time. I even started a Google Doc to communicate with my inner circle because I decided that individual text strings was just inefficient. But I didn't write up a project plan for this. I didn't write down goals and objectives. I didn't pen some grand manifesto because processing the idea of dying, it wasn't about thinking my way through it up here in my head. It was about feeling here in my heart. And what did I feel? Terror, paralyzing anxiety, like the floor had been pulled out from under me, and that, though, was all to be expected. What was unexpected was what I found on the other side of my very real death anxiety. I found clarity and perspective. It was like I gained a superpower overnight, and instantly I knew what mattered. It was very clear. There was no gray area, no questions. Looks, money, success, none of it carried the weight that it once did. The only thing that matters to me now is my health. I just want to beat this cancer and live long enough to get old and wrinkly and eat pudding and play bingo, right? Doesn't sound too bad. The reality is, the clarity and perspective that I've gained, in the world where all we care about is lying about our age and coloring our gray hair and hiding our wrinkles, right? All I'm asking for is the privilege of growing old, and if I can do that, everything else is gravy. Urgency. I don't know about you, but there's nothing that motivates me more than a countdown clock. So the awareness of the fact that our time is inevitably going to run out might, drive us to be more productive, to accomplish more. For me, though, it can make me anxious and it can make me feel scattered, right? It's like I'm the white rabbit from Alice in Wonderland, scurrying around town like a crazy person with bug eyes, pulling out my pocket watch and showing it to everybody and going, I'm late, But on better days, when I'm more centered, that urgency can drive me to be more productive, help me be more focused, and make sure that I'm spending my time on the things that bring me joy, fulfillment, gratitude. Giving versus getting. Ever wonder why your 95-year-old grandmother seems obsessed with giving you her good china? It's called mortality legacy awareness, and it means the closer we get to death, the more focused we become on thinking about what we're going to leave behind when we're gone. And I'm not talking about grandma's favorite gravy boat here. I'm talking about, leaving a legacy, leaving this world a little bit better than you found it, a little bit richer, thinking about what you can give versus what you can get. What's my legacy? If I can compel just one person in the room tonight to think about their life differently so that when they're on their deathbed, they don't have any regrets, that's my legacy. And I think it beats a gravy boat. And gratitude. Now, Jesus may have turned water into wine, which is very impressive. But gratitude, gratitude turns everything we have into enough. Now, for someone like me who is just driven to go to the next thing, to push for more, to never settle, the realization that I have everything I need is such a relief, and I do. Today, after 15 months of treatment, I'm in a great position to beat this thing. I went through 5 months of chemo. That was 5 months of chemo, a mastectomy in which I lost my breast, 2 months of daily radiation, and 6 months of oral chemo. So it was a lot. My hair is starting to come back. As you can see, it's not the long, luscious locks that I had before cancer, and I am fighting against a mullet on some days. But I'll take it, And same goes for my eyebrows. You've been through something real if you're grateful for eyebrows. And one of the hardest things for me to go through during treatment was the loss of independence, the feeling like I was cooped up, like I was restricted, And now I'm free, I'm free to work, I'm free to be in a crowded public place like this and not be obsessed with Purelling everything, I'm free to travel, I'm free to fly without wearing a mask, It's an incredible feeling having once been so restricted because my life depended on it, only to have that cage door open and feel like I can flap my wings, even it means I'm leaving a trail of feathers behind me because I'm just so excited about life, You can live a life like that, like this, with this kind of vibrant color, and rich meaning and intention. You can start right now. First, saw this guy as depicted by Tom Hanks over Christmas when I went to see the movie with my family, and I was reminded, Mr. Rogers, he wasn't afraid to talk about death, even with young kids. Mr. Rogers said, to die is human, and anything human is mentionable. Anything mentionable is manageable. When we share our feelings, they become less overwhelming, less scary. And when we find an important person to have that talk with, it reminds us that we're not alone. So tonight, on your way home, I want you to talk with the people you came here with. I want you to have the courage to be vulnerable and share what it felt like when I asked you to think about your own death. Give the fear a voice, and you will take the power out of it. Next, I want you to count your blessings. #blessed, right? Gratitude, as I mentioned, turns everything we have into enough. So tonight, I want you to write down before you go to sleep 5 things you're grateful for. Now, they could be big things like, my health, my family, my faith. Little things work too, though. Could be, I live in Arizona, so I can wear flip-flops all year round. Yeah, that's a blessing. It could be, hey, I was doing my laundry and oh my gosh, I found $10 in my jeans pocket. Who doesn't love that, right? When you are in the weeds of gratitude, you will be amazed at what you notice. And the more energy and focus you put on that gratitude, it will grow. And finally, do the things that light you up. You can see here the things that light me up, right? Travel, adventure, sports, the outdoors. For you, it might be spending time with your kids or your dog. It could be jamming out with your band. It could be gardening, whatever. So I want you to start a life list. Okay, a life list is not a bucket list, things you want to do before you die, although those things can sit on this list too. This is about big things and little things that are going to bring you joy. I started my life list when I was 15. You can see here, this is an actual copy, abridged, but an actual copy. It's got things on it like go on an African safari, learn how to surf, give a deserving restaurant server a $100 tip. Yeah, and I'm happy to say I actually checked all of those off in 2019. So tonight I challenge every single one of you, at some point tonight, maybe even here at this event, maybe in intermission, whenever you find yourself with 2 minutes, pull out your phone. And instead of mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, right, I want you to instead start a note and title it Life List. And tonight, I want you to put at least one thing down on that list. Tomorrow morning, I want you to wake up and I want you to put more things on that list. Don't hold back. Big things, little things. And start thinking about how you can craft a life where you can begin to check those things off before it's too late. You know, sadly, for too many of us, we don't think about kind of our life until it is almost too late. You know, the 5 things that people most regret when they're on their deathbed. 1, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself instead of the expectations of other people. 2, I wish I worked less. 3, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. 4, I wish I stayed in touch with my friends. And 5, I wish I had let myself be happier. Right? So I take you back to that earlier scenario. If you found out tomorrow that your time was almost up, what regrets would you have? I have thought more about my death in the last year and a half than I have in the last 39 years combined. It's not easy, right? Anxiety still makes it hard for me to fall asleep. Fear jolts me up in the middle of the night. Stories of people's cancer coming back, of it silently spreading through the body of some poor soul, right, who's living life with gusto like me because they think they're cured, only to have the cancer come back stronger than ever and kill them. The fear can be paralyzing. I know. But what I've learned is that by facing my own death anxiety, I have been able to live a fuller life. Ernest Becker, the guy who wrote The Denial of Death, said, "Guilt results from the unlived life." I don't want to be on my deathbed going, there was still life to live. I want to live like Thoreau said, and I want to suck the marrow out of life, right? I want to put my head down on the pillow at the end of the day without regrets, looking back at the memories that I created from that last 24 hours and go, man, I really did it, right? And then I want to say a prayer that I have the privilege of waking up the following morning and getting to do it all over again. You don't have to wait for a health scare like me, rock bottom, or anything else to have you understand that you can approach your life differently. If you are able to conquer your own death anxiety and face it, you could live a life full of more meaning and more intention than you ever imagined. And maybe by rebranding death, we can all live a fuller life. But don't wait until your time runs out. Live and love like there's no time to waste. Thank you.
Wow. Another round of applause for Allison Haddon, everybody. Wow. Allison, first off, wow, what a story. Seriously, I text my mom in between everything, and she texted me the words, "I'm crying," based on your story. And I guarantee you, everybody in the audience feels a sense of joy, first and foremost. I want to ask you, How does it feel to be able to have told that and inspired these people in the audience?
Far more emotional than I expected. As you guys could see, when I first started, that was overwhelming, and I was just pumping myself up in the back. Trust me, I was not emotional. I was like ready to go get it. So I think even the emotion surprised me, but I was being myself and I was being authentic, and I hope you guys felt that.
Yeah, we did. We did. Really quick. It is evident that you have a sense of humor. that is amazing to have. How did that help you in this journey you've accomplished?
Oh, there's nothing like telling jokes, especially about like death and cancer, to lighten up a room, right?
Yeah.
Because who wants to be crying all the time? So I'm lucky that I was able to fall back on that as probably an unhealthy defense mechanism at times. But it made it, I think, a little bit more manageable for myself and for other people. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you for inspiring us. Allison Hatton, everybody. What a story, what a woman. Wow, that was amazing. Well, as you can see right now, there's some props being set up, a table, a guitar stand. Yes, that is our cue. It is time for our first performer to close out Act 1. What if I told you, though, this performer has been around for almost half my life? She's 12 years old. And she said, yeah, come on. 12 years old and a singer-songwriter, and I am so excited for this. To close out Act 1, please welcome our first performer.
With a constant demand for productivity, imagination and inventiveness often take the back seat. But when they take the lead, they give rise to bold and unique ideas. Please welcome Tia Penny.
To my life a few years ago. Which one do you think I turn to more often? Strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty and the moonlight overthrew ya. She tied you to the kitchen chair. She broke your throat. She cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah. may have noticed that I sung the first verse of that song, which was Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, in Spanish. I attended a bilingual immersion school for the primary years of my education, and I found that I enjoyed learning a second language. So much so that I am now learning Mandarin with a friend of mine from school. Interestingly, music itself is a language, one that crosses borders and extends over time. With songwriting, I have the chance to develop my thoughts, expressing my creativity with the universal language of music. I am 12 years old now, but I first started writing music when I was about 6 years old. This song was originally written on the piano and later transposed to the guitar. This is Stuck on You. I'm stuck on you. Maybe you think it through, 'cause you're on my mind all the time. I'm a little scared and I'm unprepared. Maybe you will see and listen, please. All this time I've been surprised on what you do. Listen, please, I wanna be with you. 'Cause you're stuck in my mind, stuck in my mind. Can't get you out of my head. Stuck in my mind, stuck in my mind. Can't get you out of my head. I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for. I'm stuck on you. Baby, you see it's true. 'Cause there's no one else, no one like you. I'm a little scared and I'm unprepared. Maybe you will see and listen, please. All this time I've been surprised on what you do. Listen, please, I wanna be with you. 'Cause you're stuck in my mind, stuck in my mind. Can't get you out of my head. Stuck in my mind, stuck in my mind. Can't get you out of my head. I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for. Looping back, when I began this discussion, I asked you guys a simple rhetorical question of which of these two items I turn to more often. You may have expected me to call technology a supervillain or even a superhero, but it's neither for me. It's a tool that I use to look up lyrics, research tabs for the guitar, and record my music to layer it with other instruments. I use both electronic devices and musical instruments to drive my creativity, and that's what makes me happy. Happiness can be found in more ways than just through electronics, but more so in individual creativity and understanding of the resources around you. Back down to you one day, thinking about myself. If the world was perfect, but I'll be here right now. And know that when all goes wrong, I am I'd dance for you today. Thinking about myself, if the world was perfect, but I'm here and now. And I know that when all goes wrong, I am supposed to be happy is where I am, where I am, where I am, where I am. And know that when all goes wrong, the world's not so perfect. And know that when all goes wrong, I am supposed to be happy is where I am, where I am, where I am, where I am. That was an original. Not only can creativity be expressed in inspiring others, but also by being inspired by others. I am inspired by the artist Maren Morris. She got a guitar from her father at the age of 12, which is how old I am now. She also stands for women songwriters because 12% of all songwriters are women. To put that in perspective, hardly over 1/10 of all songwriters are women. Maren Morris has inspired me to learn this song, The Bones, because of the thinking beyond the words. We're in the home stretch of the hard times. We took a hard left, but we're alright. Yeah, that sure can try to put love through a fight. We built this right, so nothing's ever gonna move it when the bones are good. Rest don't matter, yeah, the pain could feel. That's cushion and let it fade. It's you and I'm in the same. When there ain't a crack in the foundation, baby, I know any storm we're facing will blow right over while we stay put. House don't fall when the bones are good. Call it dumb luck, but baby, you and I can even mess it up. Although we both try, no, it don't always go the way we planned it, but the wolves came and went, and we still standing when the bones are good. Rest don't matter, yeah, the pain could peel. Glass could shatter, let it rain. Here's you and I'm in the same. When there ain't a crack in the foundation, baby, I know any storm we're facing will blow right over while we stay put. House don't fall when the bones are good. When the bones are good. Bones are good, the rest don't matter. Pain could peel the glass, glass could shatter. Bones are good, the rest 'Cause when the bones are good, rest don't matter. Yeah, the pain could feel that's good. Shadow, let it rain. 'Cause you and I mean the same. When there ain't a crack in the foundation, baby, I know any storm we're facing will blow right over while we stay put. House don't fall when the bones are good. When the bones are good. When the bones are good. Whether it be a pencil, a musical instrument, or an electronic device, these tools can help you explore your imagination, and the creativity that comes from these efforts can make you happy and lead you to new opportunities, like meeting all of you today. I'm Tia Penny. Thank you so much, DCU and TedX, for this awesome opportunity.
12 years old, Tia Penny. Can we give it up for her one more time? Tia, 12 years old. How does it feel right now?
Feels like I'm done.
She's a comedian as well, folks. I love it. Have that. Well, Tia, it's in your bio if you read in the program, but your whole thing is about making people really feel, just to dive in their creative side. That's the whole thing, whether it's through technology, through a guitar, whatever. If you can look to the audience right now, if you had to tell them, hey, this is how you be creative, that you've learned in your 12 years of life, what would you say?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it like a step-by-step instruction, but I would say pick up something you kind of gravitate towards and kind of see where your mind wanders.
She's also a philosopher. Tia Penny, everybody, give it up. Great job. 12 years old. Where are we going? Look at that. I should retire. I don't have a job anymore. That's going to conclude the first act of TEDx Grand Canyon University. Can we make a round of applause for all our speakers and performers so far? Yeah. We are excited in the second act to have 3 more speakers and another performer. That is going to start at 7:25. That is in 1 hour. Please come here at 7:25 and get back in your seats. VIPs, you're going to go right now to a VIP dinner, which if you go out the lobby you came in and just take a loop all the way down by where you parked, it's in front of the arena and the place we call the Arc. That is in the little glass window building. That's where you're going to be. For general admission holders, you're going to go literally right across from the lobby to Building 57 is our Town Hall Village. And like I said, we'll be back at 7:25. God bless. See you in an hour. Stop it. I hate that. That's when you applaud more, folks. Come on. Welcome back. Hope you all had a lovely intermission. It's going to be a great second act here at TedX Grand Canyon University. Once again, for our first act speakers and performer, can we just give a round of applause? I am so excited for the second act of, we're going to actually start off with a performer first, then have 3 speakers to end this event. But really quickly, I know, it was intermission, you might forget just a couple rules here. So first off, you did good, but let's practice the applause really quick. Nice. Looks good, looks good. Can we practice the cheering? Yes? Yeah! Come on, feel it. Wow, they're really excited. Okay. I love it. Well, just want to make sure, just a reminder, guys, you might be asked to do things. If you want to cheer when it's, not the end of it, feel free. That's what TEDx is all about. Well, guys, I'm so excited to start the second act, but before we do that, I want to share with you a little story here. When we think of TEDx stories, you might think of these adults with these cool stories or a 12-year-old with this amazing talent. But what if I told you it's stories like this is happening in our high schools today? We have this event called Catalyst, where our TEDx Grand Canyon University team had a little day of where they invited 30 people from across the valley in different schools to kind of share their idea on what they would have, if they had a 2-minute TED Talk, what it would look like. And so it was an event called Catalyst, and like I said, 30 people from across the valley in different groups from different high schools shared and presented, and we picked a winner, and we actually have that winning group with us today. So please welcome our winning Catalyst group. Now, we have 2 seniors, 1 junior, 1 sophomore. I just want to ask you, first off, what high school are you guys from?
We're all from Paradise Valley High School.
Trojans, is that it? Cool. I like it. You had a little 2-minute TEDx style talk. What was it about? And kind of tell the audience what you were hitting on.
So the time when we did our Catalyst event was around Thanksgiving. So our talk was kind of on consumerism and how it's impeding on family values and how Black Friday is slowly encroaching into Thanksgiving. And so what we kind of wanted to do is have our audience realize that Thanksgiving should be for family and not for stores.
Can I get an amen to that? I'm not going out Thursday morning. Come on. And then secondly, you actually have, I was hearing, a TEDx-style similar event going on in April, I believe. Talk more about that and what's going on.
So the Catalyst event was very fun, very inspiring, and we're actually planning on putting on our very own TED-style event at our high school this April.
Awesome. So it's going to be at Paradise Valley.
It's going to be at Paradise Valley High School in our auditorium, just a day full of TED Talks created by our own students.
I love that. Is there a certain way that this audience can go and people watching on the live stream that they can kind of find out more information on how to attend the Paradise Valley TED-style event?
I think this event's going to be limited to students only just because of licensing things, but I look forward to bringing forward these types of talks to all you guys in the future.
I love it. I love it. Can we have a round of applause? For leaders, future leaders, and future creators, I'm so excited. But right now, actually, instead of just talking about it, we're going to show you a Catalyst recap video. So please, check it out. Catalyst 2019, and you probably saw the members of our student-ran TEDx Grand Canyon University team led it. It was an all-day event. So again, one more round of applause for our Catalyst winners. Thank you. Cannot wait to see what they do in their lives in college and all that. I know they're going to make an impact. Well, folks, we're going to kick off the second act with our second performer. And this performer is unique in so many ways that you'll see they can take a simple thing such as this piece of paper next to me and make it into art and inspiration. Check it out.
Everyone has different appreciation of art, but we can all agree that it takes on various forms in the world around us. It is often in plain sight and only becomes visible if we take the time to look for it. Please welcome Mario Garcia.
There's some universal agreements between all of us that I'd like to talk about today and demonstrate. By a show of hands, how many of you felt calmness as I was painting this? Great. So for those of you that raise your hands, we've come to our first agreement. I also feel calmness when I'm painting. I feel stillness. I leave myself in a really interesting way when I'm painting. It's as though half of me is here and another half of me is somewhere else, completely free of thought, free of worry. My name is Mario Garcia, and I'm a 26-year-old artist from Phoenix, Arizona. And and this art that I'm demonstrating for you all is a form of art that dates back to the 7th century and has made its way all throughout the world, from Iraq, Iran, China, even places like Spain, Sudan, and India, and America as well. So it's actually a language. It's the Arabic language. And what I'm working on today is an example of Arabic calligraphy. And calligraphy in general has actually made its way into the street art scene. And for those of us like myself doing it in this manner, we like to refer to it as calligraffiti, which is a blend of the classical script and the free form of graffiti. So back to stillness. I think it's important for all of us to have something in life, or find something in life that brings us to that state of stillness. And that's something that my art definitely brings me to. So I'm going to add the word stillness in Arabic as the first word. The Arabic translation for stillness. One second. There we go. The Arabic translation for stillness is sukun. So I'm going to write that out. I think we could all agree that peace would solve a lot of our problems in the world today. A poem that I really love about peace by the 13th century poet, Islamic scholar, and Sufi mystic by the name of Rumi. He said, "Make peace with the universe. Take joy in it. Every minute, a new beauty." Peace is definitely also a state of being that I go into when I'm painting. So, peace will be the next word that I add. The Arabic word for peace is salam. How many of you believe in the power of faith? Right on. I believe that faith is the secret element that could make anything happen. If you're religious, if you believe in a higher power, you've got to have faith in it in order to witness examples of its existence. And even if you're not religious, you still have to have faith in yourself in order to see examples of your own potential. A verse from the Quran, the Islamic holy text, that I love about faith is in chapter 109. It's the last verse, and it reads, Lakum dinukum waliyadin, which means to you is your faith, and to me is my faith. To each their own. That's how I interpret that. So with that being said, I'm going to add the word faith as well. Let's see where I'm going to fit this in. Okay. So the word that I'm using, I'm actually going to write two words for faith. This first one is iman, which means your faith or belief in whatever it is you believe in. And the next word I'm going to add also means faith, but more so like the path that you're on. And that word is deen. So far, we've come to these three agreements. I think stillness, like I said, something we all need. We don't come to that enough in our lives. Peace is one of the best things you could offer yourself and others. And faith, you have to have it. You've got to have faith in your ideas, faith in your beliefs. So I'd like to keep going and see how much more we can come to agreement on. Now, honesty. I think honesty is one of the most important traits any human being could have. Raise your hand if you disagree. Right on. A verse from the Bible that I love about honesty. It's so perfect. It's in Ephesians 4:25, and it reads, "Therefore, having put away falsehood, speak words of truth with your neighbor, for we are all members of one body." when you're honest with others, you're honest with yourself. And when you tell somebody a lie, you're also telling yourself that lie. And I think that's why we feel guilt and shame when we look somebody in the eye and tell them a lie and they believe it. Because we're lying to ourselves. We're all members of one body. So honesty, that'll be the next word that I add. And the Arabic word for honesty is sidq. Just another example of the richness of the Arabic language. The word for friendship is sadiq, which derives from this word. And I think this is great because I don't think any real friendship should be absent of honesty. Forgiveness. One of the hardest things to give somebody, with one of the greatest rewards. Imam Ali, who is the son-in-law of the Islamic Holy Prophet Muhammad, he had something so great to say about forgiveness. So small, so simple, but so rich. He said, "Forgive that which angers you, for the sake of that which pleases you." Just think about that for a minute. Forgive that which angers you for the sake of that which pleases you. I think the grudges and the resentments that we carry with us in life are usually the things that hold us back from feeling joy in the things that we do enjoy or would like to enjoy more of. So with that, I'm going to add the word forgiveness. The Arabic word for forgiveness is maghfirah. Patience. The easiest thing to forget to have when life presents us with new challenges. Patience can keep you from demonstrating some of the uglier sides of being human. So patience can bring new ideas and solutions to your mind. Patience can keep you from causing irreparable damage to yourself and others. My art is definitely something that requires a lot of patience. I can't rush the process. The more patient I am, the smoother my lines are. My art is definitely the best reinforcement of my patience. So I'm going to add the word patience. And the Arabic word for patience is sabr. we've come to 3 more agreements so far. Honesty, it's just as great of a gift to give yourself as it is to give to others. Forgiveness, something not that easy to do, but full of so many rewards. And patience, something that not enough of us have, but we all need it. I'm going to keep going. This brings me to my last point. I believe that beauty can be found in all things and in all people, regardless of your beliefs, your way of thinking, your lifestyle. I think that if your intention is set on finding it, you can really find beauty in all things and in all people. I'm running out of room here. Gotta figure out. So I'm going to add the word beauty. How many of you believe that you could find beauty in all things? Right on. I use my art as a way to demonstrate a form of beauty that comes from something that is oftentimes not looked at in the best light. And that's what my goal is today, is to show a beautiful side of something that we might not all be familiar with. So I'm going to add the word beauty, because I think it applies. So the Arabic word for beauty is jamal. I'm going to add one more thing, just to tie all of this in. The silence is so loud. Pardon me. Uh-oh. Oh, something's going on. Okay. Sure, they can edit all of this out of the video. Okay. Just gonna keep going. appreciate all of your guys' patience. I believe that everything is linked. We're all human, subject to the same human errors, vulnerabilities, and uncertainties. We all go throughout life feeling the same variety of human emotions. And with some of the bigger things in life, like the meaning of life, or what comes after this life for us, we all equally don't know what comes. We don't know what's in store for us. And I love this. I find this very beautiful, very humbling. Add a couple more words or letters. We all share far more in common than I think we acknowledge. If only we could come to that agreement. Thank you all.
Let's give another round of applause. Wow. Mario. You know, if I try to do something like, I'm not going to tell you what it looked like. Mario, I want to ask, yeah, I can try right now. Mario, I want to ask you, how does it feel to do this project? You're done with it. How does it feel?
It feels good. It feels good to... I was able to fit all the words in there, so that was a little bit of my worry. I thought I would run out of space, but it feels great.
I want to ask you, you tell a message through your art. And I think a lot of us try to find something that we can spread a message through, whether it be an art like this or another form of art. What would you say to people that are trying to figure out a way to express themselves through art, through whatever? How would you say you go about finding that?
I just find as much relativity between my art and myself. I just try to figure out what I'm trying to do here on this earth as a person. And I think I was just lucky enough to find something that represented myself as well. Like I said, the Arabic language has made its way all over the world. So to box it into the Islamic religion or the Arabic culture would be silly. And I think that I don't like to be boxed into anything. I don't know. I think that the art is the best way to break free of that. And yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
I love it. Mario Garcia, everybody. Man, I can do stick figures. Anybody else? Huh? Yeah. You know, one thing I love about art is you can do things that look like one thing and then interpret it by another. Another form of thing that we have outside of just art is the form of self-care. It's something that, especially in today's society, comes in so many different ways. And our next speaker is going to hit on that very topic. So please welcome our next speaker.
Sometimes we can become so caught up in being selfless and taking care of others that we forget to take care of ourselves. How can we recognize what we need to better serve others? Please welcome Jessica Brubaker.
Raise your hand if you've ever compared yourself to another person. Okay, now raise your hand if you've ever decided as a result of that comparison that they were better than you or you were less than whoever you were comparing yourself to. Okay, now raise your hand if you have ever, either as a result of the comparison or just in general, said something to yourself like, "You're so stupid. You're such an idiot. You're broken. You're defective. You're worthless. You're just not good enough." I have. I'd like you to take a journey with me back to the early 90s. All right, I should probably be honest, it's actually the 80s. I'd like to introduce you to my 4-year-old self. This is Jessica. She was fearless. She was full of sass. She loved Rainbow Bright and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, cut diagonally, of course. Her preschool teacher used to say that she was a social butterfly. And after I spent a decade as a classroom teacher, I now know that that means she talked way too much. But not one person in her life ever said to her, "You're so stupid. You're such an idiot. You're broken or defective or worthless. You're just not good enough." Yet somehow, as I made my way out of childhood through adolescence and into adulthood, those are the things that I would say to myself. Those are the tracks that ran through my mind over and over and over again at every turn of life. See, when we're young, other people are in charge of our care. Parents, biological or otherwise, grandparents, aunts, uncles, babysitters, teachers. And I subscribe to the idea that they have 3 jobs. They're supposed to affirm us so we believe we're good enough. They're supposed to meet our needs physically and emotionally. And they're supposed to set boundaries for us so that we can be safe and protected in this world. As a child, we're reliant on other people for our care. And then something happens. We grow up. And we become responsible for our own affirming words and thoughts, meeting our own needs, and evaluating the risks of any given situation. When you're young, your caregivers are the ones who cheer you on at your first soccer game, even though you ran the wrong way. They are the ones who made sure you were always wearing pants in public because that is what is socially acceptable. They talked you down if you thought there was a monster in your closet. They said, "No, you may not walk to your best friend's house even though it's just around the corner because it's 11 o'clock at night." We're reliant on them for our care, and it all changes when we hit adulthood because as an adult, if you're not wearing pants in public, the only person responsible for that is you. When childhood ends and the adolescent stage begins, it's developmentally appropriate to separate from your family and connect with your peers. And when that happens, we spend a lot of time comparing ourselves to other people because we're trying to figure out where we fit. We're separating from our family of origin, and we're looking for our family of choice. We're searching for our tribe. It's also in the process of growing up that we develop core beliefs about ourselves. And unfortunately, because of all of the comparing, oftentimes those beliefs reflect the idea that we're not as valuable as other people. Sometimes those beliefs happen in an instant with a single experience. And sometimes it's as a result of more intense circumstances, like a tumultuous relationship, trauma, or abuse. For me, a really scary medical situation was one of those circumstances. Spinal fluid built up in my brain because my body stopped absorbing it, and it caused irreparable damage that I still contend with today. And although my condition is resolved now, for the most part, the idea that my body had turned against me and that there was something wrong with me, it took up residence in my mind for a really long time. And it joined some other not so nice thoughts that were already there. Because my opinion of myself, it was also shaped in 5th grade when I got made fun of after I threw up in front of the entire class. And 7th grade, when I got threatened by a bully over a comment I didn't even make. And in high school, when I got left at the prom. And when I got fired from my first job. And when I made JV, when most of my friends made varsity. And when I stood next to my peers in the locker room while they compared who had a bigger gap between their thighs, and your girl over here didn't have one at all. And even into adulthood, when the parent of a student that I had caught cheating yelled at me that their child would not have had to cheat if I had just been a better teacher. Our beliefs about ourselves are a culmination of all of our experiences, regardless of the intensity. Whether we are talking about being teased, the end of a relationship, feeling shameful, or experiencing a trauma. And when you're grown, it's your job to take care of yourself, regardless of the circumstances that you face or have faced in the past. Self-care. It's not a new concept. It's kind of a buzzword in the media. People talk about it all the time. They say things like, well, you can't pour from an empty cup. They reference the flight attendant speech and they say, don't forget to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you help other people. And I'm a therapist now, so I talk about it all the time. But when I ask people, what do you do for self-care? Or how do you take care of yourself? The answers I get are usually pretty vague. I mean, I go to the gym. I get a pedicure if I have time. I guess I like to read. But most often, I get a blank stare, because beyond those things that we do for ourselves occasionally, most of us aren't really all that good at taking care of ourselves on a daily basis. And what's more, we often believe that we're not worth our own time and energy. We often believe that other people's needs are more important than ours. And we are choosing other people over ourselves all the time in big and small ways, and sometimes without even noticing it. Have you ever done something that you didn't actually want to do because somebody you cared about asked you to? Have you ever eaten something that you didn't want to eat because somebody you cared about said, I made this for you? Have you ever exited a public restroom, saw a person standing there waiting for it, and apologized to them as if their need to use the restroom was more important than yours? Sorry about that bodily function. I define self-care as being in a healthy and functional relationship with yourself. Or maybe just trying to be in a healthy and functional relationship with yourself. And if we go back to those things that our caregivers were supposed to do for us when we were young, we affirm, we nurture, we set boundaries. It's just that you're doing it with yourself. If I were to ask you, how do you take care of your relationship with your best friend? Do you only tell me, well, we play in the same fantasy football league? Or, we got a pedicure last month, I paid for her to get the flower on her toe? Or is it something like, you know what, I always try to answer the phone when they call, or I would drop anything if they needed me? If I were to ask you, how do you nurture your relationship with your partner? Do you only tell me we go to the gym together? Or is it more like I support them in their goals, or I encourage them to be the best version of themselves every day? Most of us are doing a pretty good job of making sure that the people in our lives know that they matter to us. And self-care, it's not about neglecting those relationships. It's just about not neglecting the relationship that we have with ourselves. Because in our relationships with our friends and family and romantic partners, there's two people responsible for that bond. In your relationship with yourself, there's only one, and it's you. Think about your best friend. Would you ever talk to them the same way that you talk to yourself? What about your partner? Would you ever treat them the same way that you treat yourself? Consider your 4-year-old self. How would you like them to be affirmed, nurtured, and protected? Why do you think people took care of me when I was young? Is it because I was so cute? I mean, I was, but that's not the answer. It was because they thought I was valuable. It's because they thought I deserved to be affirmed, nurtured, and safe. And because I didn't have any reason to believe otherwise, I went on about my day, enjoying my peanut butter and jelly, sassing everybody, and being a social butterfly. It didn't even cross my mind to consider that I was anything less than valuable. It also didn't cross my mind to consider that anyone was better than me. And I was right. Because our value as humans, it's inherent. And as you grow, that never changes. Every single person in this room is just as valuable as you were when you were 4 years old. And when we choose to pursue a healthy and functional relationship with ourselves, that's the message that we send. When you choose to intentionally affirm, intentionally meet your needs, and intentionally set boundaries so that you can be protected, you're saying the same thing that Jessica heard way back in the 80s. You matter. You're valuable. You are enough just because you exist. You deserve forgiveness if you've made a mistake. You deserve support when you're reaching towards a goal. You deserve to say no if you need to. You deserve a second chance, and a third chance, and an infinity chance. And you know what? You also deserve a pedicure, so go make an appointment. Thank you.
Great job. Jessica Brubaker, everybody. Yes. We love it. Self-care. I'm taking self-care day tomorrow. I'm telling you that right now. Jessica, you know, one thing I love about you is you're so, this is not just her in this 10 minutes. This is her behind the scenes, this is who she is.
That's true.
And we love it. How are you feeling, first off?
Better than I thought I would. That actually went a lot faster. You know, it kind of I think I blacked out a little bit. It's a little bit of a blur. I don't know what I said.
It went well. It was
Okay,
good. It was good. It was good.
Phew.
I want to ask you, though, people, I think the word self-care, whether it's my generation of college students, whether it's high schoolers, wherever, when we think of self-care, we think of this heavy thing of oh my gosh, I have to schedule this out, but it's not that. No. It can be done daily, and you speak on that. What's something that you do on a daily basis that's just self-care?
Generally, I like to meditate every day, but really, I just make sure I protect time for myself to do whatever the thing is that I need to do. So even if it's 10 minutes or an hour or whatever, I block it off, I close my door, I don't answer my phone, sorry if I didn't text you back today. I protect my time because that's so important, and there's a million things that we all need to do. Everybody's self-care looks different, but what we end up doing is putting everybody else's stuff first instead of ours.
Did you do anything specifically today for self-care?
Well, I got my hair and makeup done. Also, I don't know if you could see it because I'm not sure what the audience looks like, but I struck a little pose behind the screen. I know myself, and I know if I start from a place of confidence, I'm more likely to do well. And so I hope you enjoyed that, but that was all for me.
I love it. We love you. Thank you,
Thank
Jessica
you so
Brubaker,
much.
everybody. That was That was fun. You know, we live in a world that tells us grind it out. You know, just get started in a place, just work hard, just grind whatever you can, aka the hustle, is what we've heard. Our next speaker is going to take that and flip it upside down. Here is our next speaker.
The business world of today is focused on using whatever resources you can to gain a step up. Is there an ethical way to navigate our future success? Please welcome Rian Doris.
I used to wake up at 4:30 a.m. I used to sprint down the stairs, get my hands on as much coffee as I could possibly hold, guzzle it down, and sit down at the computer, ready to pound it out, hour after hour after hour, 14, 15, 16 hours, till midnight that night. I would grind until my eyes bled. I believed in the hustle, I was loyal to the hustle, and I thought that the more I sacrificed, the more pain I was in, the more I was suffering, the harder it was, the more I was struggling, the more I must have been progressing. And I was so productivity and optimization obsessed that one weekend I decided that I would leave my computer be and go to a conference on, of all things, productivity. And one of the speakers at that conference was a guy called Vishen Lakhiani. He's the CEO of Mind Valley, who works with some of the world's most successful, productive people. And I stood up in the audience, I raised my hand, and I said, "Hey, Vishen, what do the world's most successful people actually do? How hard do they work? What does their grind look like?" And I was secretly hoping Vishen was going to tell me the key thing is to get up at 3:30 a.m. That's the missing move. You need that extra hour. But Vishen tilted his head to the side. He looked at me sympathetically and he said, "You don't understand. You've got it all wrong. Look at some of the world's most successful, productive people. Elon Musk, Ariana Huffington, Jeff Bezos. They're thousands of times more productive than you." And that hurt, by the way. Vishen continued, he said, "These people, they have the same 24 hours in a day that you do. Yet their output, what they're actually accomplishing, is so enormous. It simply could not be down to the amount of hours they work. Time could not be the determining factor in productivity." And I took Vishen's words. I was half mind blown, half skeptical, thinking he was trying to trick me into working less, scared that I was coming up behind him to steal his throne. So I decided that I wouldn't just take his advice and run with it, but rather I'd run an experiment to test if what Vishen was saying was true. So when I got home from that conference, I did the unthinkable thing. I forced myself to work less hours. I reduced down the amount of hours that I was working, capped my work week at just 35 hours a week, 7 hours a day. It was a forced holiday at the time. But as I began to work like this for a couple of weeks, I noticed some interesting things started to happen. Firstly, the speed at which I was working, the velocity of my work, how fast I was able to accomplish things that had previously taken hours, that increased. I was able to get the same things done in less time because I knew at the end of the day I had a hard stop. I had to finish work. I also became more intentional and strategic about what to work on. I would take time to actually identify the tasks that are going to lead to the thing I'm trying to accomplish in the first place. I was also forced to confront the fact that I can't do it all myself. Having this limited amount of hours made me accept that realization. So I got better at delegating work and getting a helping hand. I got better at deferring work through prioritization, often realizing that that work was never even necessary in the first place. But the best piece of all from this experiment was that my ability to get into flow state, that zone that you've all experienced, that gorgeous state where you're totally and utterly absorbed in what it is that you're doing, lost in the work where hours go by in what feels like minutes. My ability to get into that zone increased. And after running this experiment for about a month or so, I finally began to realize the truth of Vishen's words. Productivity is not about just doing more. It's about getting more done. Productivity is not about activity. It's about accomplishment. Productivity is not about busyness. It's about progress. Productivity is simply defined as how much you can accomplish in any given hour. It's not about working more hours. And the cool thing is, the research backs this up. Work done at Harvard Business Review looked at two groups of consultants from Boston Consulting Group, BCG, one of the world's most prestigious consulting firms. The first group, like my older self, was allowed to work endless hours, just letting their work spiral out of control, 15, 16, 17-hour days into the wee hours of the morning. The second group, they were forced to finish work after 7 or 8 hours. That second group's output, what they were actually producing for the firm, was so much greater than the first group that BCG made it a permanent policy. So my plea and suggestion to all of you is that no matter how hustle-obsessed you are, no matter how much you currently have on your plate, no matter how busy and demanding things feel, force yourself to contract down your hours, to put a limit on your workday, and watch as you start working faster, as you become more intentional and strategic, as you get better at delegating and deferring and even deleting work entirely, and as your ability to get into flow state increases. And best of all, as you're left over at the end of the day with more time, more life to do the things that you actually enjoy doing. Thank you very much.
Re-endorse, everybody. He's tall. Ryan, I would get in trouble if I didn't ask. The accent, where is it from?
Ireland, Dublin.
Ireland. There we go. Go Irish. You know, you hit on it. We live in such a world that tells us you were getting up at 4:30, going right to the coffee. When you rearrange and stop trying to do the hustle, how did people react? Your closest friends, your colleagues, did they react positively? Did they react negatively? Talk about that.
It depends on which friends. Some friends would react negatively to the hustle in the first place, and then some hustler friends would react negatively to working less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do people that want to try to really focus on what they're doing and do things they enjoy, how do they get away from the negativity and truly be able to focus on what they love?
Well, I think, if you start with running that experiment and just forcing yourself to contain your work rather than just letting it spill over endlessly, then you start just getting much more effective. You're able to actually accomplish and produce even more than in many more hours otherwise.
Wow, I love it. Finally, how you feeling?
Good. It was fun.
I love it. It was fun. Re-endorse, everybody.
Hi.
Ireland. I knew it. Folks, it's come to that time. We have reached our final speaker. And before we introduce him, I want to make sure that we all kind of think about what we kind of define ourselves by. Who are we? Define who you are. Because our next speaker actually has a secret to unlock, and that's defining what it means to be nobody. Here's our next speaker.
We have the opportunity to make an impact in every moment of our lives. But does that mean leading the pack and standing in the spotlight? Please welcome J.A. Plosker.
I am J.A. Plosker. At least that's what it says right here. But today, I also wear the label of TedX speaker. You could also call me a writer, a teacher, a taxpayer, a guy who hates chunky tomato sauce. I'm also known as a husband and a father. But what if we peeled back those labels? Well, who would I be? Well, underneath it all, I'm nobody. What do you think of when I say the word nobody? Maybe you think of failure, being insignificant, anonymity in a world that defines success through achievement. For most people, being nobody isn't really something they get excited about, or for that matter, something they'd encourage a child to be. But when I think of being nobody, I think of a limitless, open, welcome release from the constant noise and relentless pressures of the world. And I can tell you that after years of study and teaching in philosophy, ancient wisdom, and comparative religion, as well as my own personal search, I've come to think of it as freedom. That's why I'm teaching my daughter to be nobody, to remember that the nobody part of her has just as much a claim to her future success and greatness as the somebody she'll inevitably be. And that doesn't make me a bad parent. The best day of my life was when my daughter was born. But it was also the day I realized why humanity has strayed so far from being nobody. Within 10 minutes of her birth, she'd been innocently barraged with labels: name, weight, height, gender. She got a certificate of authenticity. She was even scored on how likely she is to thrive. Within 11 minutes, she'd taken her first selfie, and by 12 minutes of being born, that photo had been seen by nearly 100 people. She had labels of approval and health. Now, those initial labels are cute and helpful, but here's the thing. Those labels get heavier as we get older. We're surrounded by expectations, pushed to excel. We're encouraged to be somebody. Height is marked on the wall. Our artwork is taped up in the classroom. Grades are assigned, ranks are revealed. We get jobs, we seek promotions, we share our victories, and along the way, probably beat ourselves up for what we didn't do, didn't become, or didn't do right. All of this turns us from people who want to be successful and have a good life into perfectionists, the ultimate state of somebodyness, the place where we forget our nobody nature. A recent study from the American Psychological Association found that perfectionism in youth in the US, UK, and Canada has been on the rise for the past 27 years. The study defined perfectionism as excessively high personal standards and overly critical self-evaluations, and suggests that the cause may be due to more competitive environments, unrealistic expectations, and more anxious or controlling parents. That push, right? That push to be somebody. So, some of this starts with the parents, right? The sickness and the cure. I remember realizing the weight of that responsibility. My 3-year-old daughter and I were drawing rainbows. And she drew a line that was just a little flatter on top, right, than the other nicely rounded curves. And she said, "Oh no." She went to start a brand new rainbow, even though the one she was working on was, of course, absolutely beautiful. So as her father, what can I do? Well, I can realize that these are pivotal moments to intervene and rewire this notion of perfectionism. To let her know that her rainbows are beautiful just as they are, and that she doesn't need to be known as the perfect rainbow kid. To help her see that who she is and what she can offer this world is deeper and more lasting than that. To let her know that there's a side of her that does not depend on outward perfection or labels of approval or achievement, a part of her that's nobody. Of course, I had to come to that realization myself over many years. And for me, my wake-up call was almost 20 years ago. I was struggling to make a name for myself in this world. The year was 2002. Just graduated law school. I was lost in anxiety and depression, but I was desperate to prove myself, to land the perfect law firm job or prestigious clerkship that I had been programmed to want, to be a perfect legal somebody. Problem? Instead of achieving, I was beating myself up, measuring myself by what I could do or earn. Until one night, found myself sitting across from a spiritual teacher of mine. And he said, "You can ask one question, any question, and you'll have the ear of the universe." Well, what an opportunity. I knew this teacher. I knew what this meant. So, of course, I asked about the meaning of life. Right? No. Of course, I asked about the purpose of life, right? No. I asked about my job. I was struggling, so I asked if I should continue to be a lawyer. And he said, "What you do for a living doesn't define you. It's only work." He said, "I'm going to have the universe bring you that message. It's only work." Great, thanks. Off I went, back home, back to anxiety, back to depression, back to worrying about the future, back to striving for who knows what. But a few days later, my dad calls, and he says, "Hey, the strangest thing just happened." He said, "I'm alone in the house here. A man's voice just spoke to me and said, 'Call your son and tell him it's only work.'" He said, "Does that mean anything to you?" It did. Those words slammed me back in the moment. And I realized that striving to be somebody in this great big world, regardless of profession, isn't the only purpose to life, or at least not a purpose worth making myself sick over. I had to let go of this all-encompassing desire to be somebody. I dove headlong into the books that I'd collected over the years on ancient wisdom, dove headlong into them with new eyes, new curiosity. This time, however, my search wasn't for some academic pursuit. I was just a guy on a search for a happier life. And then I found it. Nobody. The phrase, "it's only work," came alive through ancient history. I didn't invent this. This isn't new. What I rediscovered is that there are many ways into this other side of our existence. This idea of being nobody. And most of it is stuff we already do right in our everyday lives. You may know it as nothing, emptiness, stillness, humility, transience. It's all around us. We live a second nobody life even if we don't know it, even if we're not aware of it, even when we're busy being the somebodies we've become. Over 2,000 years ago, Lao Tzu illustrated the power of emptiness in the Tao Te Ching when he wrote, "Clay is fashioned into vessels, but it is on their empty hollowness that their use depends." When we hear someone out from a place of non-judgment, we are living the nobody way. Maybe if we empty our minds and listen to someone instead of trying to fill their empty cup with our advice, we exemplify emptiness. Once in a while, create an empty space that someone else can fill. You do it just by being a good friend with a willing ear. In the Bible, Paul called it humility when he said that Jesus made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. He humbled himself, and therefore God exalted him to the highest place. Whether or not you believe in God is not the prerequisite. If we're looking for chances to serve in the midst of lives where we're also looking for chances to succeed, maybe we're closer to this nobody thing than we think. Opening a door for someone, letting someone with a cranky toddler get ahead of us in line at the grocery store. They don't need to know your name, your job title, your spiritual preferences, or what kind of car you drive. You're just humbly stepping aside to make room for others, to serve. The Bhagavad Gita of Hindu tradition provides a powerful reminder of our transience on this earth, stating, "As a person sheds worn-out garments and wears new ones, likewise, at the time of death, the soul casts off its worn-out body and enters a new one." Whether or not you believe in a soul or reincarnation, you can still believe that these bodies, these labels we live by, are temporary. It makes sense. All of these things sound like great starting points for all of us. But my daughter's 3. She has a hard time opening a door, much less the strength to hold it open for someone else. So how am I going to make all of this into something that she can practice now? Well, here are 3 ways this has shown up in her life. And by the way, there's no mystery here. This is all going to sound very familiar to you. 1, share with others. My wife and I say, when another child comes over and you have the urge to pull your toys away and yell, "Mine," remember, they're a guest. Create a space in which to welcome and share. 2, let others talk. As you grow, you're going to have exciting experiences that you want to talk about. But other children have experiences too. Learn to share your story, then create a silent stage for someone else's story to shine. One light can help the other shine even brighter. And 3, help people to feel good. We have a superpower that can help people when they feel down. Kind words. Step out of your life once in a while into someone else's experience and share a kind word you think they might need to hear. As parents, my wife and I are learning about our nobody sides as well. We guide our daughter, but we try to step back and let her lead. We set boundaries, but allow for flexibility. And we fall short sometimes when her actions or words don't match our expectations. But we learn with humility to do better in the next moment. As parents, we're mindful of our words and our actions because we never know which moment will be a lasting memory. We're programmed from birth to get in touch with the somebody side of ourselves that will bring us success and achievement on the world stage. But let me suggest that we also begin early on to teach children not only about the space they fill, but the importance of holding it for others. They may not do it, but they'll hear it. They may not embrace it, but they'll see your example. It's a delicate dance through life. It's a negotiation, it's an acknowledgement, and a mindful practice. and it needs to start as soon as possible. So let's teach our children this, that we can prefer but make room for others' preferences, achieve but help others succeed, and wear labels but understand that they don't last or define us completely. I believe that's not only the key to a more peaceful day or life, but a more peaceful world for our children. And then, as we grow, we can be a TEDx speaker, a writer, a teacher, a taxpayer, a guy who hates chunky tomato sauce, a husband and a father. And we can also be a blank canvas, willing ear, quiet supporter, space holder, patient friend, compassionate coworker, imperfect person, and someone who helps others to shine. If you have a child in your life who you love, encourage them to be somebody in this world. But also empower them to be the nobody who can change the world. Thank you.
One more time for Jay Plotzko, everybody. Jay, I want to ask you, we live in a world that puts so many labels on us. Like you said, your daughter within 10 minutes had so many. And we live in a world where social media wants to label us, but something happened in your life. What happened that made you realize we have to look beyond the labels?
Well, I realized I was becoming so consumed by that I was missing out on this whole other side of existence. And so the things that make success feel good were missing for me, because that's all I was focusing on was the success.
What do you tell somebody who, whether they're young, they're old, male, female, whatever, how do you balance striving for success but remembering not to just look at the label?
My mom told me years ago, she said, never forget where you came from. And that applies to everything. So everybody was once a student. Everybody was once an apprentice. Everybody was once learning. So I think the humility to understand that we all come from somewhere helps us to be nobody and somebody at the same time.
Finally, how you feeling?
Great. It's good to see you.
You as well. You as well. Jay Plotzko, everybody. Six speakers, 2 performers. Can we just applaud them all? Wow. Before we go, we have a few more things we want to show you. And if you didn't know this, TEDx Grand Canyon University obviously takes place on a university. This was a fully student-developed event with the help of some staff to put it together, the logistics. But the ideas, the production, the speakers was all student-led and driven. And that is led by a man, a fearless leader, Justin McLean, the TEDx Grand Canyon University president, who I want to bring out right now. So please welcome the TEDx Grand Canyon University president, Justin McLean. Doesn't he look good? Oh, sharp he looks. Justin, we've been buddies since we stepped foot on this campus, and I am humbled to see how you have become the leader that you have. What does it mean it's done now, and it's been a year-long mission of yours to just sit back, and what do you say now?
Man, I'm just, I'm fulfilled and thankful. Yeah, I could say hours and hours of stuff, but I think it all culminates into just being so fulfilled at this moment and just thankful for every single little facet, every single partner, the team. There are so many thank yous to be given. With that, I want to hit on a few, because tonight was, I think we can all agree, tonight was pretty incredible, huh? There are some extremely key people who came together to do this. I don't know how many of you are super familiar with the way TED and TEDx works, but TEDx events are individually planned and organized. So the TED mothership gives us a license and they say, have at it. There's a huge team behind me that said, let's have at it together. But there's also sponsors in this Phoenix community that said, hey, we'll get behind you and we'll have at it together as well. So I want to thank a couple of those. Can we throw up the slide here? A couple big ones here. Artisan Color, my goodness. Is Artisan in the house tonight? Where are they at? Hey, big thank you to you guys. So Artisan has made tonight just aesthetically beautiful. Everything from your programs to your name tags to the banners outside to those sweet stickers on the floor that led you here. Artisan got behind us and said, hey, these students are doing something pretty dang cool. They're bringing something to the community that we love, and we're going to get behind it. And we could not do without that. Another one is Canyon State. Is Canyon State in the house? Hey, there they are. Thank you, guys. Now, Canyon State has been with us since the beginning. This is the 4th year of TedX Grand Canyon University. And ever since that inaugural event, Canyon State has looked at our students and seen the absolute enormous asset and advantage that being a part of TedX Grand Canyon University gives to our team. And they have just been the biggest supporters, just so loyal. And this doesn't happen without you guys, so thank you. Last one I got to thank is Canyon Promotions, and they made our team look sharp tonight. The T-shirts, CCSC volunteers, shout out to those students who came and welcomed you guys and gave you your name tags. Canyon Promotions got the swag bags together. So there's so much that came together that could not be done if these companies, if these organizations were in it for themselves. They came together as a community, and I think that is the word that wraps up tonight. It is a culmination of something. It is something extremely beautiful and awesome, and it's community, and that's what TEDx is about. So, thank you guys. Thanks to all of our sponsors.
We want to show you. There's a group of people here. Can we give it up for our TEDx Grand University production team as well? They are insane. They were so amazing that, in fact, they have taken tonight and have put together a recap video for you guys. Check it out. You know, like I said, this is a fully student-led team. Their fearless leader, Justin McLean, but it would be an absolute just travesty if we did not give the full student team this opportunity just under the lights that they do not want to be in front of at all. But please, they're going to make their way on stage. TEDx team, make your way on stage. When they're coming up, can we just please give them the biggest round of applause? Everybody that's going to be on this stage is a student here that has made tonight remarkable, that has made tonight an impactful moment. Come on, get them all in. coming for your jobs, guys. We're coming for your jobs. The future is here on this stage. One more time. President Justin, you look at this team, that they have made this happen. What do you say to them, and what do you say about the future of TedX Grand Canyon University?
All I can say is thank you, guys. It has been a pleasure to serve and to see you guys grow. It has just been an honor. I gotta add, to get myself together here, I gotta add, every single one of you in the chairs tonight, this team has grown and developed so much. Yeah, we're coming for your jobs, that's true. And you're enabling it. Seriously, we talked about, I mentioned being a community tonight, and that happens with our sponsors, happens with the team, happens with GCU AV, the guys filming it, the guys sitting in the back of the stage running the sound, but it also happens because you're here. So I want to have you guys take ownership in that you're empowering us to grow, you're empowering us to serve, and you're empowering us to come take your jobs. So thank you.
Wow, what a night. Finally, to our speakers, to our performers, thank you so much. To you guys, the audience, thank you so much. To our sponsors, to everybody, the TEDx Grand Canyon University team, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next year. We are so thankful.